But right now we have State Representative Dave Maturen, currently of the 63rd District. He's served 2 terms. He's allowed 1 more. He'd like to serve 1 more, but he's being challenged in tomorrow's Republican primary. And Dave, it's good to see you again here. Good morning to you.
Happy to be here.
I'm sure that you have been extremely busy out knocking on doors and the like. What's that been like?
Well, I've been getting a good reception on the doors. A lot of people, when I get a chance to explain my position on issues, I think they come away supporting me. So it's just a matter of getting the word out. There's a lot of, I guess, misconceptions and misinformation about my record out there. I'm trying to set it straight.
We'll give you a chance to do that here as we chat this morning. Who are your supporters?
Well, I'm supported by every Republican elected official in Calhoun County, from county government on up, Senator Mike Knopfs, Sheriff Saxton, Prosecutor Gilbert, 5 county commissioners, the entire courthouse contingent. Let's add Governor Snyder to that. Governor Snyder just endorsed me a few weeks ago. Kalamazoo County, I'm endorsed by virtually every Republican elected official in the county government, including Senators O'Brien, former Senator Shoemaker, as well as Congressman Fred Upton. Now, maybe the folks in Calhoun County don't know my opponent that well, since he's only been registered here as a resident since March 26th of this year, but the folks in Kalamazoo County do know him. That should tell you something about the support that I have from those folks, my ability to continue to serve the 90,000 residents of the 63rd District.
One of the things that your opponent, Matt Hall, attacked you on is your Second Amendment record and gun rights, and a lot of his supporters are supporting him just for that reason. Why are you against the Second Amendment?
No, I'm not against the Second Amendment, and he claims I'm anti-gun. I'm not anti-gun. Look, I grew up in a family of hunters. We have wild game on our table 2 to 3 times every week. But there's some things I don't believe in. I don't think we should be carrying guns in schools. I also voted against what's called the constitutional carry, a set of 4 bills that were in the House this term. And essentially what that would say is you simply walk in, you buy your gun, you throw it in your pocket, and you walk out into society. And I've talked to a lot of CPL holders. I personally have a concealed pistol license myself. I don't want to take anybody's guns away. I've talked to CPL holders. I've talked to NRA members. They all agree that we need some sort of training for folks if they're going to be carrying a weapon. But when I espouse those issues, then the folks that claim to stand up for gun owners give me failing grades in whatever grading system they have. So
I too am a CPL holder, and I went through all the process. I was a little frustrated that it took a little time and that I had to spend some money on it. But you know what? Every time I see a story in the news about someone misusing their concealed pistol, my thought is, you know what? They're going to use this to take away our rights to carry completely.
mm-hmm.
We need to have some system in place to make sure that not any idiot can go out there and get a concealed pistol to defend themselves. There are some people who just shouldn't have them, and I know that some of the purists think that everyone should have the right, but you know what? If you've got a record of beating the daylights out of your spouse 3 times a week, you shouldn't have one.
Yeah, well, those are the things that, unfortunately, I get graded down on, and I think those are common sense things, common sense gun ownership, common sense responsibilities. But some folks who do the rating apparently think that just the opposite of what you just exposed. So.
I'll bet, though, that when you go to door, you're hearing more about no-fault auto insurance reform.
I sure do. I sure do. My opponent claimed his last interview that I voted with a small number of Republicans to defeat the reform. He doesn't really care to look very deep into issues. And he always just relying on sound bites to make his points. I'll let you know it wasn't just a handful of Republicans. It was 23 Republicans, over 1/3 of the Republicans in the House that voted no on this alleged reform because it didn't benefit my constituents at all. I think I've been through that before on this show.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was the conservative Republicans, those people who have a rating of 80 to 90% according to the Michigan Information Research Service, otherwise known as MERS. Those 80 to 90% Republicans were the ones that voted for it, and the moderates and liberals voted no. Well, tell Appropriations Chair Laura Cox that she's a liberal. Tell Tax Policy Chair Jim Tedder he's a liberal. Tell Judiciary Chair Jim Runstead he's a liberal. Of course not. A lot of rational people took a look at that bill and said it just doesn't benefit their constituents. It had too many holes in it. And if you read the bill, you'll certainly realize that. Now, while we're on this whole subject of topic of rating people, 80 to 90%, he seems to think this MERS rating system is the end-all be-all. So he'd be calling former Speaker of the House Kevin Cotter a liberal because he only got a 70% rating in 2016. Or he'd be calling Speaker of the House Kevin Cotter in 2015 and then Speaker Pro Tem Tom Leonard liberals because they both got a 65% rating in 2015. Guess what? Both years I was tied with those individuals. So I've been tied with the Speaker of the House and Speaker Pro Tem 2 of the 3 of my years in the House. So I'm certainly not considered to be a liberal unless you think that those 2 individuals are liberals.
Now, you touched briefly on your opponent's residency. You said March 26th he moved in. What? Then he filed to run how long after?
Well, I think you asked him a question. You asked him how long was it? I got it somewhere in here. You asked him how long was the time frame between the time you changed your residency to the time you filed, and he said, I don't know. And then he said, well, about a month. Well, what a coincidence, because you need about a month. You need a month to become legally considered a resident by state election law. Okay? So I don't think it was just a coincidence that he happened to move within that time period to be able to be considered by the election law a resident. Now, he noted he filed against Mosh with the Federal Election Commission, took out some papers, and then he decided not to do that. So he didn't pull the trigger. But his very next sentence to you was, so I moved back here to Emmett Township. He never lived in Emmett Township. He's never lived in the 63rd District until he filed his paper with the Secretary of State on March 26th, changing his driver's license and his voter registration. So, with the very next words out of his mouth, and I'm going to quote this, I moved with no intention of running for anything. He moved here with no intention of running for anything? Let's just stop it, okay? He lived for 10 years in his $400,000 condominium on the 17th floor of the highest, most swankiest residential development in Grand Rapids, and then on a whim said, gee, I think I'll trade all of that to move into Lakeside Apartments in Emmett Township. Look, if folks that are listening to this believe this whopper, then give me a call, because I got a bridge to sell you.
State Representative Dave Maturen, 63rd District, is here tomorrow. There will be a primary election, and in the Republican primary, there'll be 2 names on the ballot if you live in the 63rd District, as I do. And Dave Maturen, probably one of the things besides the auto reform bill is the roads. I mean, talking autos, pretty much the center of all the big issues this year. What about fixing our roads?
Well, my opponent in his last interview here claimed he could fix our roads but not have any new taxes. So he proposes using the sales tax on gas, not the gas tax on gas, but the sales tax on gas, 6 cents on every dollar of you spend on gas, to fix the roads. So depending on the price of gas, sales tax is going to raise between $800 million and $1 billion. And 3/4 of that goes to the state school aid fund. So if we're going to take the money, take those sales tax dollars and apply them to roads, so where do we get the $600 to $800 million that's going to be made up in the state school aid fund? We're fortunate last year we were able to double from $120 to $240 the amount of money we gave additionally to our school districts to educate our kids. But my opponent's plan is going to reverse that trend of increasing funding and send our schools into deficit. Now, he claims education is a priority. I heard him say that, but obviously he knows little about education funding to propose such a disastrous scheme. This is one more example playing politics and not looking out for real, sound, sensible solutions for the critical issues that face us in Lansing. I forgot to mention when we talked about support, I got the support of the State Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Association of Michigan, Fraternal Order of Police, Michigan Association of Police Officials. So I got the folks that walk out there every day protecting us, supporting me, okay? And I've got the folks that are interested in keeping this economy going, the business groups supporting me. So I think that's also important besides the number of elected officials that are behind me. So.
What do you think, Dave Maturen, what are the top qualifications that you have to be our state representative?
I think I dig into things. I just don't parrot sound bites and talking points. so many people do. It's easy to throw out a couple of words, a couple of sound bites, but when you really got to crunch numbers, you really got to dig into things. That's what I've been doing for the last 5 decades as a real estate appraiser, digging into things, verifying things, vetting things, and actually going the extra mile, doing the digging to make sure that the legislation that's up there is really going to benefit my 90,000 constituents here, rather than simply regurgitate some sound bites at people. So I do look into issues. I dig into issues. I've got a lot of experience in government. I'm not a professional politician. I certainly set time aside from my business to engage in township, county, and now state government. But I've got the experience necessary to hopefully put 2 more years in. We still got a lot of unfinished business to take care of, and we've got to keep the state on the same course we've been on for the last 8 years, with job growth, new jobs, critical training for our youth. I don't want to spend 4 years in college. Let's make sure they're trained enough to get out of school and get a job.
If you're re-elected, what's the first order of business on your list? What's the most important thing that Michigan needs to do?
Wow. I do think we need to take a look at our insurance, auto insurance reform, and there are bills out there right now, and if they don't see the light of day, hopefully next session they will. There are bills out there to chip away at this personal injury protection. I think one of the things right now, though, you look around and every community I look at has got PFAS. This whole PFAS issue. It's over here around the air base. It's in Richland Township. It's in Parchment, and it's just not this part of the state. One of the things I sit on the Natural Resources Committee, I've got approval from the chair of that committee. We're going to be taking up this issue when we get back to make sure we've already done a lot in the state of Michigan already, putting together a task force, putting $60 million into funding for research. That to me is a critical issue just from a drinking water perspective to the folks here in my district in Southwest Michigan.
And an issue I think we're going to be hearing about in more communities before all is said and done.
The more testing you do, the more of the stuff you find. So.
State Representative Dave Maturen, 63rd District. He'll be on the ballot tomorrow when you go to vote, and we hope you will vote and cast your vote regardless of where you decide that vote should be placed. Get out there and look it over and do it. We've got some information up on our website about the proposals, the candidates, but it's very simple also to go and see your sample ballot, the one that you will see where you live and when you go to the polls tomorrow, and you can make some informed decisions. Think about this a little bit between now and tomorrow if you can. We hope you will. Representative Maturen, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.